who are the second and third best Indian batters of all time?
So after Virendra Sehwag.
Yeah.
Is this test?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
when you say of all time,
Okay. Last 50 years.
Okay, right.
Because we didn't see the VJs as much. Did you play against the VJs? No, you would have missed the VJs.
No, I remember lads who came across playing in league cricket like Vinu Mankad, Datu Fadkar.
They played league cricket in those days, didn't
Oh,
they?
yeah.
Vinu Mankad would have been hard to play at a
Danawadi.
So if we're talking test cricket...
Chandu Borde.
He's still going.
They aren't on the list.
If you're talking test cricket, I would have Gavaskar, who's not that far behind Tendulkar anyway, I don't think. And then I would have Dravid.
Ooh, okay. So I was expecting Gavaskar.
I've got one of them.
He won't have both of them because he doesn't like defensive batters.
I've got Gavaskar.
Yeah, and so now we'll need Sehwag to battle it out.
VVS Laxman.
Oh, he's not better than Dravid.
Oh, I think so.
Really?
I'm having VVS, I think. Yeah. Kohli in front of both of them. Kohli's he's past his peak.
It's hard to have the conversation about Kohli at the moment because
because
everyone's like, look at him now.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Did you see the end of Jarrod Meandad or Ricky Ponting's career? They couldn't bat either.
So I've got to qualify that and say I'm going to have Gavaskar because I think he's a forerunner of that time in that era. He was so brave, so technically correct, insatiable about his run scoring. But Kohli in his peak.
See, if
Kohli at his peak, I'm going to go
I think
Kohli.
you like peaks because VVS and Kohli at their peaks I've got no issue with.
Yeah.
But over the breadth of their career, they do not compare to Rahul Dravid.
Go on. Why?
Rahul Dravid over a long period of time at home and away was just impenetrable.
The wall.
Right? And even when Tendulkar slipped a little bit, because I think Tendulkar in the 2000s wasn't anything like Tendulkar in the 90s. Tendulkar in the 90s was about as good as we've ever seen. But Tendulkar in the 2000s, I think he took a slight step back. But having Dravid ahead of him, it didn't matter because you couldn't get through him. I don't think we've ever seen a player with the ability to play the ball as late, as naturally, as softly as he did. And he stopped you getting him out.
So he must have rotated the strike as well.
Yeah,
He kind of hogged the strike to allow Tendulkar and others to play the way that they did. He got away from the strike.
Yeah, I mean, he was a brilliant... I'd say he was a better player of spin than Tendulkar. I don't think he was anywhere near the level that Tendulkar was against pace. Tendulkar's probably one of the best players of seam bowling we've ever seen. But what he did against pace, Dravid, was the soft hands and playing the ball late to backward point and to gully over and over again, and he would just take the singles, wouldn't he? But also, I don't think there's a better player at simply defending and staying in, because most players do have to get off strike more. I think Dravid was one of the best defensive batters. Probably be up there with someone like Boycott of just being like, they could probably sit on a great bowler for 30 balls.
Gavaskar's doing that.
I've already got Gavaskar in my side, so I'm done.
I'm not having two of them.
No, you could. It's absolutely your choice.
I'm having Gavaskar and Kohli.
Oh, well, we had VVS a minute ago.
No, I've gone to Kohli. I'm not in his peak.
Do you think if I'd asked this question 2 years ago?
It's Kohli.
Yeah.
I'd still have Gavaskar and Dravid ahead of him.
What was Dravid's peak? And in terms of winning matches, and also in terms of home and away, in terms of their average, if you say that his Dravid's main skill was playing spin and he wasn't quite as strong as pace, that suggests to me that maybe he wasn't as effective in Australia and England.
He made a double hundred in Australia. I think he had one terrible tour of Australia. He had that. Dravid had that tour of England, was it 2011, 2012, when he was finished, really. He was past his best, and he still made all the runs on that tour, didn't he? So he made a lot of runs in those places when he had to.
And I'm not doing Dravid down at all, by the way.
Well, you are.
No, I'm not.
It's disgusting.
No, because I had to work. My first job in this industry was the India tour of 2002, and I worked out at the end of it that Rahul Dravid had batted for over 24 hours in that series. So, he was very successful. It was the times of Desktop Richie. Can you remember Desktop Richie? The little...
I don't think we had that in Australia.
No, you probably didn't. Well, I was behind Desktop Richie.
You were Desktop Richie?
I was Desktop Richie.
How is that not on your Twitter profile?
I don't know. But did he win matches in the same way, obviously scoring 200, or did he save matches? I mean, who was the match?
Or did he set matches up? So that's winning matches if he's setting games up.
I mean, no way doing any of these legends down, just trying to work out the difference and where...
If you want someone who wins matches, Sehwag then comes up the list, doesn't he?
Well, yes, he does.
Because Sehwag is...
Why isn't he on the list?
Well, he is on the list. We're talking about it.
He's in the top 5, isn't he? I'd have him ahead of VVS. I think VVS probably played 2 of the top 20 or 25 innings of all time.
I've still got Kohli.
Oh, yeah. No, but Kohli is another one who I think, the way that Kohli plays, he would win matches quicker than, say, Dravid would. But how do you compare that to the fact that Dravid was far more consistent and batted? Even when Dravid was past his best, he was still making runs all around the world.
One of the reasons I love Gavaskar, you kind of mentioned it, was that, Dravid was playing in an era of incredibly strong batting for India.
Yes.
With your Sehwags and your Gangulis and your Tendulkars. Gavaskar wasn't batting in quite such a strong era, which is another reason for him to be in the list. And you both agreed he is in the list.
I think, from my book, I think you could make the argument Gavaskar is the best player of spin of all time. There's an innings I watched him play against Pakistan on a wicket that the game should have been called off. Like the wicket it was just rocks. Gavaskar's getting hit in the shoulder. He's having to duck the spinners. Like, I've never seen anything like it. There's no other batter I've ever seen who would have been able to survive and thrive on a wicket like that, the way that Gavaskar did. And yet still, I don't think he was great as an opening batter, probably in the first innings of Test matches is my memory with Gavaskar. But once I looked at the early morning wickets went away, he was really top quality against pace. And he's remembered for being far more boring than he was. He could definitely lock in, but he actually has a pretty decent one-day record for a player of his time as well.
He could adapt. I mean, Gavaskar could adapt, and when he played at Somerset, they absolutely loved him down there. They really did.
So why Kohli then? Why does Kohli come in ahead of the Dravids and your
He gets me
your
on the edge of the
VVS?
seat. Get me on the edge of the seat. I like the inventiveness. I like the sparkiness, the spunkiness of Virat Kohli. As I did with Ganguly, he toughened them up. Ganguly toughened India up. No more.
He's not in this conversation.
Oh no, he's not. No, he's not. But as a leader, and to get them tougher, you're not going to tread on us. Ganguly was a market leader in that. But Kohli, he's like Kevin Peterson from an England viewpoint. Got me on the edge of the seat when I was working and commentating. This is great watching this guy go about his work, because he defended really well, but he could accelerate and he could change gear. He could move a gear, get quicker.
I think even during his form dip, he's still one of the best players in the world when bowling's over 87 miles per hour. So even when he's got older and he's not making runs against anyone, he hasn't struggled against very fast bowling. And I think if you go back and you look, I remember Mitchell Johnson hitting him in the head. It was the Test after Phil Hughes had passed. And it was so interesting to see someone get through that defence. And he makes 100 in both innings of that game. It's one of the best performances I've ever seen by a batter ever in that whole Test match. He almost won it for India on his own. He was absolutely brilliant. And I think the problem is at the moment, when you have this conversation now, people can only remember the last couple of years and what has happened. But if you go back, Gordon Greenwich had a terrible end to his career. Javed Meendad, Ricky Ponting, Hashim Amla couldn't bat at the end of his career. There are some players who are just
sad, isn't it? It's, you see a great player and he's just past the peak. To sit down as we are now and just to hit. It's a brutal question to Virat Kohli now. Why are you not getting any runs?
Yeah.
Just leave it and see what he has to say.
And it's hard because I think there are players who mature quite well, like Graham Gooch and Kumar Sangakkara and Mike Hussey, and there are others who don't.
So coming back to really present day now, I've just seen it coming down on the train today that Steve Smith says that Labuschagne has not lost form, he just can't score runs, which made me chuckle. And they'll sort of regroup, don't they? Players will not say I'm out of form or I've lost it.
Do you remember the Greg Chappell one?
I can't do it. He's not out of form. He just can't score runs.
Yeah, Greg Chappell once said, I think he made 5 ducks or something in a row against the West Indies over one-dayers and test matches. And he said, I'm not in bad form, I just keep getting out.
Yeah.
And I've used that line so many times in my life when anyone asks a question, oh, no, it's all fine, I just keep getting out.
If I was to change the question so it would to incorporate ODIs,
Ooh.
would that, well, it would change.
I don't think Gavaskar's still number 2.
or Gavaskar, what?
Oh, Sehwag, I think. Pile Sehwag into that.
Well, then
dangerous.
Kohli is automatic then in that list, isn't he?
Kohli, Sehwag, he'd be dangerous, that Sehwag.
Sehwag isn't remembered as a great player, and I've written it a couple of times, and people will come at me. I'll say, well, if you have a look, he was scoring at more than a run a ball while averaging 35. Like, if you put those numbers in today, we would think he was a great player now. And he was doing it when no one was doing it. So, because Sachin was averaging 45, and Rahul was averaging 45, and, you know, you've got Virat going on to average 50, right?
VVS, how did he go?
I don't think he was massively suited to one day. I'd have to go back and check. But I think at the time, we didn't understand what Sehwag was doing. Whereas actually now, like, he was so revolutionary at that time. He was just in the wrong, you know, in that climate, it looked like he was failing, whereas actually he was setting it up so that Tendulkar could just knock it around, right? And then get into his innings. But yeah, I think then you would definitely have Kohli. That's when Rohit comes in for the ODI argument as well, I would say. I think I would still have Sehwag as a complete cricketer ahead of Rohit, but Rohit probably comes in as well.
Would Dhoni come in? When you consider the wicket keeping?
As a player,
captaincy.
But if you're just talking batting, no. That's the player. That's a different conversation with Dhoni.
We can have that conversation. So, second and third Indian batters of all time are
Gavaskar, Kohli.
Gavaskar, Dravid. Sorry, I forgot who I said.